Nobody wants to watch an hour and a half of two guys talking.
The list of people, I don't even know any.
It's about 5.
Yeah.
Nate, maybe.
Your team.
I was going to say Nate, maybe.
Your team.
I'm not even sure my whole team. It might just be
Me.
Nate. Yeah.
And Whit Huffer.
Got into the game, I think, playing in my backyard at my parents' house. I used to play with, some of the guys that ended up being on Club Ripped, but mainly I just played in the backyard with my dad. And then I know after having some home run derbies, Nate Hansen invited me to play on the team, which was a big deal because I knew Nate was very much into Wiffleball. And he told me all the stories about the tournament that he's been playing in since he was, very young.
10 maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I was going to say 10, but I'm not sure exactly what year it was.
Yeah.
And he brought me in, we were in high school, so it would have been either 97 or 98. It would have been my first year, and then I think I played 2 years in high school, and then from then on, I played in the tournament every year except one.
Okay. Those first couple of years, how did you guys do?
Not great. We hadn't gotten the full roster yet, but we also just were totally overmatched, and I think kind of awestruck, honestly. I mean, because Nate would tell us these stories about these teams, and so we'd play games against, the homeboys or the builders, and we just assumed we were going to lose going into the game because we had no idea, these guys know how to play wiffle ball. We're just high school kids that are out there to hack. And I don't think we even made it to Sunday for the first at least 3 years, maybe 4 years that we played.
Okay.
And we were happy. I remember one year I think we went 2-2 and we were pretty geeked about it. Which sounds kind of silly in retrospect, but we were 19-year-old kids. We were really happy about going 2-2 in a wiffle ball tournament. When we got our full roster, it really kind of clicked. And we got a chance to play together more often. I think we didn't. I didn't realize how much continuity really helps in football until we played together for a few years, and you could really get a good communication style. And John and I played baseball together, and baseball together where he and I had to physically communicate. I played right, he played second. I played third, he played second sometimes. So we were constantly doing that, so that really helped both of us being in the outfield, being really comfortable with each other playing. This really is a treat.
Well, it's morning, so
Yeah, right.
you got to do what you got to do. Tell me about 2003 until 2004.
We had, I think, normally it doesn't work out like this, where you have a progression where you go from Sweet 16 to Elite 8 to Final Four to championship, losing in the championship game to then winning the next year. But that's exactly what we did. We went basically step by step through the tournament. So in 2002, I think, that was our first year, because we won in 04. So we would have lost in 03, so we made the Final Four in 02. That would have been the first year that we really knew that we had a chance to win. And we really thought that we were up among the better teams in the tournament at that point. I don't remember who we lost to in that game, but I do remember that we played in that year. We played a couple of really good games. We used to play the Killer Bees every year in the tournament, somewhere in the Sweet 16 or Elite 8, and just play great games against them. I remember one year we actually lost to them when it was still double elimination, and the only reason we ended up advancing was because that was our first loss, and we ended up winning the rest of the games. But they were a big obstacle for us. The Builders were a big obstacle for us. The Sure Things were not an easy team to beat. I remember when we beat them, that was a big feather in our cap. When we started to beat other teams that had won, it kind of felt like we belonged a little bit.
Right.
And it was just fun, to get those guys respect too. That was a big deal.
Right.
2004, I think we beat the Funky Classic Osprey, and that was they were still. I mean, they're still very young, jerks. But they were really young then. Mike Schuster came in and pitched at the end of that game. We beat them pretty soundly, and that was a good feeling. Afterwards, so we had "Don't Stop Believing" as our theme song, kind of before the White Sox did it in 2005.
Breaking news.
Yeah. We were the first ones on that trend. I'm sure no one else before us ever did that either.
And no one after.
And I remember driving around. Yeah, right. I remember driving around Mishawaka with the trophy, and Nate was holding it out of his Jeep. We were just honking in the streets, and Nate was holding the trophy out and pumping his fist in his Jeep when he was driving down the street.
I'm sure people were running out of their houses.
They were lining the streets already. They already knew. Somebody told them. But that was a really fun memory.
Yeah, if Mike Schuster was pitching at that point, you know that those kids were young.
Yeah. They were. I don't know how they made it that far that young. I mean, we certainly didn't.
I think Dan was 19 and Randy was 17, maybe. I'm guessing is about what their ages were. So.
Which year? Now, what year did the tournament go invitation only for a year or two? Was it then?
3 and 4.
Yeah,
2003 and
that's
2004. Right. Arguably, though, the competition never got it. I mean, because the best teams. Were there. You know.
Yeah, I don't think the final group of teams of the Sweet 16 or whatever changed much from pre-invitation.
I think there the guys from YTS told me that I left them out of those 2 years, and I said, I apologize. I said, thanks for coming back, because they were really good, but I think I didn't realize how good they were back then.
Those are good guys too. We ended up playing them in the tournament. I swear we played them 6 or 7 years in a row in the tournament, and I think we beat them every year. And they took it really well, but I mean, they had every right to really hate us, and they didn't take that right, which was nice. We played one game against them. That's still one of my. I think that was probably the best game we ever played as a team. I think we won. I don't remember the exact score, but we hit at least 30 home runs as a team in 3 innings. And I mean, it was obviously very much wind assisted, but we hit like 15 homers in a row at some point in that game. I mean, it was silly.
Yeah.
But they were the victims of that one. That was just bad timing. But yeah, I remember playing them a lot.
So I think one of the most interesting things about your team is that you've won 4 championships, but over a long span.
Yeah.
So kind of maybe talk about how the team changed or waxed and waned, or and then talk about some of the other 3 championships.
And in 09, and I think that was around the time that we started to wonder how many more we had. I think we thought we had a few more. And then we didn't win. There was 3 years off. And nothing changed those years. I mean, that was same team, same group, everything. And then we won. I know we won again in 12. That was our most recent one. Right. I'm not going to say last.
Right.
Most recent.
Yeah. Since the Blue Ribbon Builders won their 05 championship, I always call it the Big Three, dominated for a decade.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I think it was kind of fun because we seemed to somewhat straddle that era because I remember vividly playing the Builders and knowing that they were basically, they were the team to beat for us.
Right.
And then, after they left, it might have been us for a little while, but there were a couple of younger teams, obviously, Funky Plastic, that, we knew was an enormous threat. And the Valco boys? Yeah. Because it's funny, we never got to play them.
Really?
Almost never. We ended up losing at different parts of the tournament or something. But we never got a chance to match up against them much. I think we maybe did once, but it hasn't happened a lot, which is strange because we've been in the tournament for so long together.
Right.
They're a great team. And they're a lot of fun too. Nick is really good friends with a lot of the guys on that team. They still hang out and play together pretty frequently on another team. So that's always a fun matchup because there's a lot on the line. I think when you add pride into playing wiffleball, bragging rights with your friends, it really does something. I know we had a second team from Munster, Deuces Wild. It was a really good team.
Yeah.
But they kept running it. They might have been victims of wrong place, wrong time because they were very good. And they'd constantly make Elite Eight or Final Four and then
What
lose
happened
to
to them?
somebody. They seem to be. They don't have a full team anymore, but they pop up as parts of different teams. So when I played with those, I actually played with
Like
some
if
of
they
those
put
guys.
that back together, they could still. I don't know what they're. I don't know how good a shape they're in these days, but
Yeah, well, I mean, how good a shape any of us into these days, but you can do it for a weekend, right? Yeah, I don't know what whether they're gonna play again or not, but I do know that we played some of those guys that popped up and played with us, various versions of our team combined with theirs in other tournaments, which has been fun. Kind of an all Munster group. We only got to play them once too.
yeah. I mean, they're the kind of team that I thought could win.
Yeah. It would have been like the like when the '90s Bulls were on their run. They would have been like the Cavs.
Yeah.
Really good team that just never got there. Well, obviously, our captain and player of the decade from the 2000s, Nate Hansen. I think he's the best pitcher I've been able to watch. I think both because he's extremely quick off the mound. We're very comfortable with each other. I mean, the whole team has played together now for well over a decade. And we mix and match positions somewhat. I know, Nate's cousin, Nick Thoman, is our right fielder now, but he was our catcher for a while. Bill Tropinger pops in and out as our catcher. Occasionally plays outfield. And John Premitz was, a right fielder for years and years, and now catches a lot. And also plays some right. But Nate is so comfortable just switching out with those guys. I think that makes his defense even better. And he has to be the most frustrating pitcher to bat against, because no two pitches are ever the same. I mean, he will not throw you back-to-back pitches that break the same way, that do the same thing, that look the same out of his hand. If you're left-handed, you've got a great chance against him, because lefties just punish him. I mean, as a rule, if you can switch hit, do it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm talking out of school there. It's not a very well kept secret.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah, no, lefties are a problem. John, talking about other guys. I mean, John Premitz is one of the best, most consistent hitters I've played with. Personally, I tend to go through hot and cold streaks a lot more than he does. He normally he'll either hit the ball off the center field fence, yank it 80 feet foul down the left field line for a home run, or he'll just be locked in. I mean, for the most part, that's basically the three ways that he hits. He's just a consistent professional. I would call him a professional wiffleball hitter. He's very, very, very good at that. And then I think Nick Thoman is actually turning into one of the. I mean, he goes in spurts where he's the best player on our team. And I mean, he's a little more like. I think he's a little more like me, where he runs hot and cold. But good Lord, when he's hot, I mean, I kind of stand back and watch. He also has as a lefty too. I think it's a real skill to be able to hit the ball the opposite field. I feel like righties do that to some extent, but I almost never see lefties. And he just kills the ball to center and left center. Not to mention that now he's actually a good defensive player too. Which
So speaking of hot and cold,
I think I do need a beer this time.
Beer this time, what would you like?
I'll take another one.
Yum yum, please.
And another?
Speaking of hot and cold, I remember 2012. It was the last year at Rose Park, last year in Mishawaka, and you guys went on just an incredible run. You were as dominant, I think, in your last championship as I've ever seen you. Nate came over and told me that you had hit 14 home runs in a row. Tell me about that.
I honestly, I feel like I almost blacked out during that time. I mean, we were one of the games, again, I feel bad about this, it was YTS. I hit 9 homers I was 9 for 9 with 9 homers in one game. And then the other 5 came on either side of that. They didn't, at one point, I think the pitcher started throwing the ball left-handed just to see if that would work, just as a joke. And he just lobbed one over there. It was like I was using a beach ball bat. I mean, there was no way I was going to miss. And the wind was blowing out, so I mean, it was just put a little backspin on it and get it in the air. That was a lot of fun. I mean, I've never had I don't even know if I've ever done something like that in batting practice, honestly.
I can't say for sure because I obviously have only seen a small percentage of all the games ever played, but usually word gets back on that kind of stuff. And that might be a record. I mean, seriously, I don't know if anyone's ever done that.
I remember, at least early on, being extremely impressed by Zolman, because we ran up against them and they beat us repeatedly. And I was very impressed not only by his pitching, but he played left a lot too. And they had with the right fielder that also pitched, Downey. Yeah. And he would pitch a little bit. He would pitch against us, I think, somewhat with the intent of not letting us get many looks at Zolman. And then you go into right, and he just make great play after great play in right field. I mean, those and he was fast. I mean, those two guys were, really difficult to match up against. I remember, I know his last name's Lowe, but I forget his first name. Kid from the Lowriders. Dan Lowe. He's a monster.
Yeah.
He is as frightening a wiffle player as I think I've ever faced. I mean,
I think that guy's been flying sort of off the radar because he's played on some good teams, but they've never really, I don't know that they've gone to the Final Four.
Yeah.
He is a one-man gang as far as I can
if you ever
tell.
wanted to be a mercenary, there are a lot of teams who would be lining up to get him on their team, I think.
Yeah, and he's like, he's the nicest guy. He's soft-spoken.
That was probably one of the only times that we ever had. I forget the exact situation, but he was in a position to win the game for them late in a game, and I don't think we've ever had a quicker decision on intentionally walking someone in our wiffle ball history. We had our intentional walk. We didn't have to talk about it. They just turned around, and John and I were both like, "Oh yeah, send that kid to first."
Yeah.
He's extremely good. The whole team on Funky Plastic Offspring, I think, they use speed more than I think any other team in the tournament that at least I've had to play against. And it works because it forces you to make every single play against them.
Yeah, you're talking about down to first.
Yeah, their speed from home to first. I mean, and you have to make the play and you have to make it quick.
Yeah.
And that is something that I don't think a lot of other teams have. And it really does, but it puts pressure on you as a defense. I mean, if you want to get them in a mashing game, they'll probably be good too. But on games when the wind's blowing in, they're a very difficult team to beat because you have to be really buttoned up with the defense.
Yeah.
And the battery on the Balco boys is incredibly good too. I mean, they're it's funny when you have I think you expect catchers in wiffle ball not to do much, but I mean, both pitching and catching, they really have good players and a lot of foul ball outs, which are easily the most frustrating way to make an out in wiffle ball. I think that or grounding out to the pitcher.
Yeah.
Which one would you rather do?
Ground out to the pitcher.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Foul outs are just awful. Those games are always close. They're always fun, and you really have to be on your game with those guys too. I mean, you can't just go out there and outslug them. That's probably not going to work.
They don't make many mistakes.
No,
like you guys.
Well, but they have two mutants playing the outfield. We don't have that luxury. We have a short guy and Nick, who's kind of lanky. I can't jump and rob home runs like those guys do. I could never do it like they do. But even now, I'm lucky if I can get over the fence far enough to even knock the ball back.
Yeah.
Those guys. There was one play where I hit a ball that I was positive was a homer. Yeah, I didn't think anybody could catch it. And not only did they catch it, he made it look easy. I remember just thinking all right, well, now I have to hit it 2 fields down to even get a home run over these guys. It's demoralizing.
Yeah, I remember them. I think they played in the championship game in Mishawaka, maybe one of the last years, maybe 11 or something. And I remember it was a team that came over from Illinois that had gone to the championship game. They were a good team.
I remember those guys. They were good.
Yeah. And they're playing the Schusters, and these kids, and the wind's kind of blowing out on that field that goes north at Rose Park, and these guys are hitting home runs, only they're not going over the fence because, literally probably in 2 or 3 innings, Dan and Randy must have gone over and robbed 6 or 7 home runs.
Yeah, because seemingly when you're hitting, they're both 6'7" and can jump. That's what it looks like when you're hitting.
I had no idea they were 6'7".
When you talk to them, they're not that tall. But when you're in the batter's box, they're at least 6'7". I'm telling you.
But I remember, so this kid came up to bat, and he just looked out there, and he said, "I don't know, what am I going to do? Hit it to Jesus or Moses?"
Nice.
It was, and the whole place just cracked up. I mean, but that it was. It had to be demoralizing.
It is. Yeah, it is.
They're cranking it over the fence, and they're out.
We play. It's funny you mentioned that field. That was the single weirdest important wiffle ball game I've ever played was on that field.
Okay.
It was the championship game in '06 against the Builders.
Okay.
And in the first inning, the wind was blowing out to center, and I think we hit it was either 3 or 4 homers. I don't remember the exact number. We hit 3 or 4 homers.
I wrote about this.
We had 3 or 4 homers in the first inning, and between innings, a storm front came through, and the wind shifted completely, so now it was blowing in everybody's face.
Right.
And nobody could hit.
Yeah.
We did, to our credit, we did outscore them 1-0 after that.
Right.
We still would have won but for that weird winds thing.
Right.
But that was incredibly strange.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like, you're ready for a home run fest, and it's going to be these two heavyweights going at it, 15-14 game, and you guys did your thing in the first inning. Literally the wind, like you said, I'm retelling your story now. It not only switched, the temperature dropped 25 degrees.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's a completely different game.
Yeah, and just between that half inning, that was the weirdest. I mean, it was too bad that it happened in the championship game because it's kind of fluky.
Yeah.
But like I said, we still ended up winning 1-0 after that.
You still gotta generate runs, and you guys did.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah.
But
We played two of my favorite, of the 4, those are my 2 favorite championship games. And we actually lost the other one we played against them in '03. It was definitely probably my personal high point playing wiffleball. In the first inning of that game in our first ever championship, I robbed a homer in the top of the first and then hit a homer in the bottom.
But you said
at this point we were up 1-0.
So to rob a home run, you got to go over the fence.
That's true. That was a long time ago.
Okay.
That was a long time ago.
You were taller.
I was taller. I might have looked like I was maybe 6 feet tall in the outfield. So we were up 1-0, and I felt like, all right, we're gonna kill these guys, and then we didn't score again and lost 3-1 or 4-1 or something.
Yeah.
That inning, it was like Devin Hester returning the opening kickoff for the Super Bowl. You feel like there's no chance you're gonna lose now.
Yeah.
Then you do.
Yeah. Well, those guys, that team was relentless.
Those were fun games against them too. They were all tight. I mean, there were never blowouts either way.
And those are good.
Which is true with the funky plastic and the.
And those are good guys too.
Yeah. This is where other teams get in trouble, I think, and where I think good teams don't. Do not throw the ball around.
Yeah.
Do not throw the ball around. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing is you can really quickly turn an okay play or not a great play into a horrible play.
Yeah.
If you grab the ball and just immediately turn around and whip it towards a batter or anything like that. Because the chances of you hitting the guy, you don't have a good grip on it when you're not exactly in good position. They're tiny, and you really are just compounding a mistake.
Right.
You have to be a little bit crazy, I think, to play any of the outfield positions because the field's so close, it's so tight. You're going to hit the fence repeatedly. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. You just have to kind of get over that. If you're playing left or right, really. You're going to hit the fence at some point. It's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And hopefully, it's going to hurt anyway. You might as well try to make the catch. I think they tell NFL receivers or receivers at any level. I would say those would be the top things for me.
Yeah. I lived for, as fun as it was, going to the fence or scary, either one. The ground ball was my favorite thing because that was the adventure. That was making that play. While it looks really simple, is not at all. And anybody that's got any speed at all, even if you make a perfect play, can still be the guy.
Yeah.
So it's and you can make a mistake really easily and put it past the pitcher.
Those are, and I mean, most of the time, I don't know, how you were doing it, but I wouldn't even necessarily grab the ball.
Right.
You would just kind of cradle it and flip it up towards the pitcher with either one hand, or if you could, get both hands on it.
Right. Sometimes I remember in desperation, I would literally, dive and flip in the general direction of the pitcher,
Or just hit it up.
hoping.
Yeah,
that, you know.
then maybe if you hit it high enough, the pitcher can run under it or something. Yeah, just you want to give your pitcher a chance on a grounder.
Yeah, so there are nuances to the game, I guess, that fascinate me because it's different than it's where it completely departs from baseball.
Yeah.
And it's its own thing.
That's the beauty of the slow pitch one too, because slow pitch wiffleball game too, because there is defense involved. Fast pitch is really just pitching, and to some extent hitting. But, I mean, if you have a good enough pitcher, hitting doesn't even matter. But I think it's so much fun to play defense because you really do. There's strategy involved. It's much more physically taxing than I think. Somebody who hasn't watched it would give it credit.
Right.
Actually, one thing I was curious from your perspective: how is maybe not wiffleball, the game hasn't changed a ton in the time that you've been watching it. But how has defense changed? It seems like now I think teams are better defensively than I think by and large than teams were maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it used to be you could have an average right fielder get away with it, win it. Catcher that wasn't inclined defensively at all. You could have two really good defensive players and you'd be okay. I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think you can get away with it. I had a conversation recently with somebody, and I was kind of going through the evolution of this, what I'm calling, this fence jumping thing that is so prevalent now. I was talking about back in the 80s, Scott Ormetti was the first and the only guy who was really going over the fence a lot and well, doing it really well. And it was amazing to watch, and it was kind of like, before Jordan there was Dominique Wilkins, and they called him the human highlight film, and like once every week he would make do one of these incredible flying dunks, and then actually Dr. J was doing it, and then Wilkins, and then Jordan came along, and Jordan was doing it 4 or 5 times a game, and that's kind of where we've evolved to, because now, somebody like Randy Schuster is, doing what Scott did routine. It's one of the most cool plays to watch. Somebody, go over the fence and steal a home run.
I would, I think I'd put that second. My favorite is still the layout dive for an outfielder or a pitcher. Yeah. Because those just you don't have a chance to time it. That's just pure reaction. It's like, that's like the equivalent of a third baseman, catching a hot line drive or something like that. Those are, it's just pure reaction, and you can't even explain. I've made a couple of those plays.
It's when the athleticism kicks in.
You don't even know what happened until after you've caught it or not. You just like the play's over, and you kind of stand up, and then you realize like, all right, I didn't go that way, but you don't have enough time to actually. Like, all right, now I have to take a step, then leave my feet, then stretch my arm out. You just have to make that play. I think those are as fun too. Horrible when you're batting. Just god awful. So one question I had for you too, which I'm really curious about. What is the most significant thing you've rescheduled to be able to make it to the wiffleball tournament?
Well,
and you don't have to limit yourself to one answer.
My wife, who was sitting behind the camera, might tell you that we got married on a Sunday late afternoon because I was running the National Skokie tournament on Saturday. So
that's the trump card right there. I can't beat that.
I can't say that it was rescheduled, but it was conveniently scheduled.
Taken into account. Okay.
The tournament was scheduled before the wedding, so
all right.
What are you gonna do?
Obviously. The craziest one was I had a very good friend's wedding that was in Detroit, or right outside of Detroit. And we had it was on Saturday night, so we drove after we played on Saturday in Mishawaka. We drove up, went to the wedding and the reception. I stayed stone sober during the entire thing, which, if you know me, is somewhat difficult. got up at 3 in the morning to drive back to play on Sunday because we had like a 7 a.m. start thanks to whoever scheduled the tournament that year. And ended up, I don't remember how we did actually. I can't imagine it was terribly well, but I remember Anna, my wife, just absolutely hating me because of the schedule. She thought, oh, we should just go to the wedding. No, it wasn't even my wedding, so I mean, that was an obvious choice.
What choice would she make now?
I think she'd go to the tournament. Yeah, I think she gets it there. Yeah. She actually, I loved the first time that she got to watch us play because I would tell her about the tournament and she couldn't make it for a variety of reasons for a couple years, and she's, I think like a lot of people, when I said I played in a Wiffleball tournament, she'd imagined just like drunken fat guys hitting plastic balls over a fence. And I said, no, it's really like when you see me come back. Well, yeah, but I mean, you see me come. There's that element of it too. But then I told her, I was like, you see me like hobbling around for 3 days after the tournament. It's not an accident. I mean, there's a lot of physicality involved. Oh yeah, right. Then I remember after like 3 games, she was convinced.
Yeah.
Thoroughly convinced.
Yeah.
Especially after watching Nate hit the ground. He spends more. I don't know if he spends more time on the ground or on his feet during Wiffleball.
I know.
I don't know how his body holds up.
I know. Yeah. So I have a story about people understanding the athleticism of the tournament. Laura, my wife, her dad played football at Notre Dame in the early 60s. So he came out the first year and he spent the entire Saturday dragging his lawn chair to my games, and we went 0-4.
Okay.
And, he was moderately impressed with what the game was. So he came back Sunday and showed up in time for the Final Four. And he goes, where should I sit? And I said, sit in the outfield right in between the 2 fields behind the fence.
Yeah.
You watch both games at the same time. In the first inning of the 2 semifinals, he comes walking over to me and he says, oh my God. He goes, this is a whole different game than I was watching yesterday. This is incredible. And I said, yeah. So, I mean, here's a elite athlete, looking at this thing and thinking, this is amazing.
It's surprising. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought like, oh, I'm a hotshot high school baseball player. I could play Wiffleball.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't. I mean, it took me years to figure out how to do it.
I couldn't tell you how many times I hear, people say, oh, well, we got these 2 guys that are all-state baseball players.
That does not translate all the time.
That's exactly.
Does not always translate.
And I always used to say, and I was biased because I was a basketball player, but I always said, I actually think basketball players translate better into Wiffleball players than baseball sometimes.
Actually, I think you might be onto something there.
So,
yeah, I think especially defensively, there's a lot. A lot of lateral.
I mean, hitting is hitting. It's just
right. You either can or you can't.
You either figure it out or you don't.
Quick would definitely help you, and that's something that I think you can maintain even after your body starts to go a little bit. I mean, some of those plays and some of the things that you learn, you kind of become like the wily veteran. You know how to field that grounder. You know what the ball's going to do when it comes off the bat. That kind of thing. Just playing really helps you with that.
Yeah, I mean, by the time I hit 40, that quick twitch that you need playing left field, I didn't have it anymore.
I'm not sure I ever had it though. I mean, did you ever?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I never had it.
And I lost it, and I got out of that position immediately.
Yeah.
You can't play.
Yeah. Well, and if you're not helping,
you can't. Like the first step thing. That
Yeah.
You've already said you're going to win more championships.
I don't recall declaring that. I think we can.
Okay.
Really don't want to put a target on us.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, really don't want to do that.
So you think you still have what it takes to win championships. When that is no longer the case, however long that is, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you still keep playing Wiffleball.
Oh yeah. I honestly can't imagine not playing Wiffleball. I mean, it's funny for as old as we are now. It's actually kind of funny that none of us have kids yet. But I think the kind of implicit idea is that we would keep playing and then eventually drag our kids into playing Wiffleball as well.
Yeah.
Until we actually get to that point, it's kind of an empty threat, but it would
easy to say.
But yeah, I mean that'd be an enormous amount of fun to be able to kind of pass that along. And I I can't imagine ever stopping to play. I mean, we had when we were getting pretty good. You guys were by far the most fun team to play because you were having a great time. You were still good. So the game wasn't just silly. Because
Good enough.
there were some teams. Well, there are some teams that you play where you're kind of like, why? I'm not risking injury for this almost. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not great. But you guys were still good, and it was a fun game, and everybody was yelling at each other and having a good time. And I would hope that we would transition kind of into that as we get to the point where we're not going to be winning titles anymore.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I think while that is true of our team, I also think the reason that we're not playing as a team anymore is I think that I think it got hard for some of the guys, Larry and maybe Scott, when it was clear we weren't going to win anything. I think it got hard for them to keep playing, which disappointed me because I just want to keep playing with them because I enjoy playing. And, I'm going to play as long as I can run.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which might be last year.
That's already happened.
It's getting there.
Well, I would never. I don't think I'd ever stop because it'd be more difficult. I don't know when I'd see these guys most of the time. I mean, you try to get another meeting at some point during the year, but it doesn't always work out that way. And to have this as kind of a protected weekend, something that you reschedule your life for, I think you need some of those with friends that you don't necessarily see all the time. And if you get to play Wiffleball at the same time, I mean, how can that be bad? If it gets to the point where we're embarrassing everybody by being out there, then maybe we'll just go and heckle people. But until that day comes, I think we'll still play.
Right. The sexiest player in Wiffleball.
Well, I actually thought about this for a long time because my gut reaction was to go with the same pick that Skip had, which was Nate. But I thought about Lou too. I think I'm going to stick with Nate, but it's a close call. It's a very close call.
Okay.
Nate Hansen, the sexiest Wiffleball player. How can you argue with?
It's a trend.
I don't know how you can. You can't argue. You just can't argue.
Yeah.
It's difficult during Wiffleball weekend. Sometimes I'm thinking about asking Anna to make some other plan because we can't keep our wives away from it.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, Laura keeps saying she wants to go out and do stuff with Nate.
Yeah.
We've never done anything with Nate, so I don't know where she's even getting it.
I think it's like a Wiffleball form of PTSD when I watched the one that you did last time with Skip.
Okay.
Because of all the pitchers I've faced, he's probably the one that when I frequently screw up or I'm running out to the pitcher a lot, it's his face that pops into my head. It's his stupid running Wiffleball that I still have nightmares about that I can't hit. He is the single most difficult pitcher I've ever hit, and I think I'm probably the only person in the tournament that will say that because I remember other people. He was a pretty reasonable pitcher. Threw very similar pitches most of the time.
Yeah.
But I just could not hit the guy.
Yeah.
So I want to give him a little bit of a shout out for being a freaking nightmare.
Who else do you remember from the early days? Like some of the old guys there?
John Arndt. He was terrific.
Yeah.
Him. Scott. The guys on the Builders. When a lot of I think we missed a lot of those guys kind of when I started playing.
Yeah, you never played against Dud's gang or you played against the Sure Things.
We played against the Sure Things a couple times, but that was on the back end of their run.
Yeah, they held a really good team together for a long time.
We played a terrific game.
Aged well.
Yeah, we played one of our definite coming of age games was against them. It was a low scoring game. I don't know if it was 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-2, whatever. It was a one-run game. It was on that field at Rose that had that weird tall fence. Part of it was like a dirt infield. It was probably on the south.
Yeah.
The fence was facing south when you were hitting against it. I remember we played a great game against them, and that was a definite. We had to get over. We could beat these guys. We weren't kind of already going into it to lose. I remember they were a big roadblock for us. Just because, I mean, they had the reputation, and that was back too when we had all the introductions for the teams. That was fun, but it was also a little bit intimidating when you hear their biography when you go out there and you're like, oh man, we gotta play these guys? They won like 3 titles. How are we gonna do this? That was a lot of fun, and it was great because when you actually did win, you could wait and you're the last team introduced.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I thought about doing that again, but it's time consuming.
Well, now you have the flag ceremony.
Brought that back.
Yeah, the flag ceremony was good until John hung it upside down.
That was epic. It's on video. It's on YouTube. Somebody caught that. It'll be up there, 50 years from now.
That's
the curse of club room.
That's John's contribution to posterity right there.
It seemed the right thing to do, though, to leave it upside down for you guys.
Oh, it had? No.
I was like, that had to be good karma. But
Not so far. Not so far. We can break the curse. We can break the curse. What is I'm actually curious. What's your favorite? If you had to pick, when you think about the Wiffleball tournament, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
The first thing that pops into my head is lining the fields the day before and setting up the fields and thinking, I am proudest of the game itself, not the tournament, not playing in it, not any of my own accomplishments, not even the fact that there are hundreds of people I've met, and I get to have these amazing friendships and conversations. And the thing I'm most proud of is that the game for 37 years has remained almost unchanged. It was kind of a fluke.
Yeah.
We adopted a great game from some friends that we played with as teenagers and adapted it. And when I start laying down the fields, I just, and the dew is still in the grass, and the soccer fields become wiffleball fields. I love the game itself, and I'm excited just for people to get out and play. That's what, and I'm not making that up.
I know, yeah.
That is what really is the first thing I think of.
That's great.
Yeah.
And actually, along the same lines, how'd you guys come up with the idea of having a Hall of Fame?
I think, it was our 10th year, and we knew, and we were.
So I didn't even know it only started the 10th year.
Yeah. So it was our 10th year, and I think we were in awe every single year that we kept doing it. We were like, I can't believe we're still doing this. I mean, like year 3, we were laughing. Well, we laughed the first year. We were like, we're having a wiffle ball tournament.
You never know how someone's going to go when you start it the first year either. I mean, that might be the only time it ever happens.
Yeah, and so every year that we did it, we were just kind of in awe that we were still doing it, and just thought it was, incredible that So on year 10, we're like, we got to do a Hall of Fame. This is big time now.
Yeah.
We've done this for 10 years. So yeah.
But so I emailed these guys and asked them about what they remember, what their highlights were, and then just memories started pouring back in. So it was great. I mean, we've been talking about, the 3 of us have been emailing about Wiffleball for 2.5 weeks now. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah. And there was one. Who knows if any of this is going to count? But I think probably and Nate and I have the same memory. So and I dove up and caught a line drive right off the top of the grass, and then flipped it to Nate, and there was a runner on third. Nate grabbed it, turned around, and pegged the guy as he was sliding into home. And it was so obvious he was out, they didn't even argue.
Yeah.
They just were stunned that play happened.
Yeah.
And for both of us, that was when I asked Nate what was your favorite play memory. That was it. That was mine too. I can tell you the worst play I ever made. Last year, for the first time, I went to field the ball. My finger got stuck in one of the holes, and so I went to flip it. And I ended up throwing it behind me. I have never in my entire life had anything like that happen, in practice or otherwise.
Yeah.
So I went to flip it to Nate, and I had no idea how to. I didn't know what. I was so unexpected. I just stood there for a second and then turned around and got it. And the guy was on third by the time I picked it up.